On January the 3rd, 1931, ministers like Van B. Williams, William Williams, and Holly Conley joined with others to form the Ohio Valley Association of Christian Baptist Churches of God. And this is our story. It pleased our Lord to awaken people in the Ohio Valley to the fact that in these last days, the banner of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ needed to be held high, and that the gospel of Christ crucified was needed to be preached in its purity. Farbrook Chapel of Farbrook, Kentucky, Westwood Mission of Ashton, Kentucky, Maybert Road Church and Northmoreland Church, both of Portsmouth, Ohio, were the founding congregations. In Psalms 16:6, the Bible says, "The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places, yea, I have a goodly heritage." We honor this heritage, celebrate the present, and anticipate our future, knowing that everything we have is a gift by the grace of God. If we are to move forward for Christ, we must remember where we have been. Our people have suffered hardships, have celebrated more victories. This is our heritage, and it is part of our identity in Christ, holiness unto the Lord.
The past causes the future, and we have a beautiful heritage. And by studying our heritage, it'll help us understand how things work in our association, so that we can continue to move forward and do the work that the Lord has called us to do.
Where do we begin? Christian Baptist. My earliest memories was back probably in the 60s, best memories of the 1960s. Go back in other memories, goes back up here and Dad talked about it. Dad became a part of Christian Baptist sometime in the early 40s. He would tell stories before they got the campground here. He when they bought the property here, when they built the campground, built the tabernacle, no air conditioning, when they built the administration building. He could tell you the whole history of all those things. One of the things that kind of always amused me was he talked about coming to General Council. They would ride a bus. They'd catch a bus in Grayson, I guess, ride the bus, go to Franklin Furnace, and come down for Friday session. And they'd stay till after Saturday before they'd ride the bus back home. And they would sleep inside the church. They would just sleep on the church pews. And he would tell of sleeping on the church pews at Franklin Furnace, I guess in the old church, before they built the one up on the hill, probably, or wherever it was in that vicinity. But they would sleep on the church pews.
I came in the Christian Baptist in 1971. And that early, of course, I went to Sunday school and church from my home church up at Jeanette's Creek, where my mother went there. And Mom would get us ready, and we'd take off walking and head to church. And then somebody would come along, pick us up, and take us on to church. And then we'd go to church and Sunday school, and then they'd bring us home and let us out in the driveway when we got in the after services. And Mom would take her us boys and girls, and we just take off singing and go through the cornfields or go up to the top of the hill and down the other side, and just different things. And people loved my mother, and they'd pick us out. They know who was along.
My memories really start with Brother Mary White. We'll do this. Sorry. I gotta stop there for a minute. Brother White, I don't know if I've ever met a more meeker man of God. And what a great testimony he had, and a great encourager. Here I was, just a young boy, wasn't even called to preach yet. It's almost like he knew. It's kind of weird. God had given him that sense, of leadership, and he always was an encourager. And then Brother Shepherd, just his joy, laughter, and just his stoic leadership ability.
I want to thank you for watching this documentary on the history and heritage of the Christian Baptist Churches of God. With a unique name as the Ohio Valley Association of Christian Baptist Church of God, we may begin to ask the question, who exactly are the Christian Baptist churches, as what we like to call them in short, or the Christian Baptist Association? And maybe what are the distinctives of the Christian Baptist? Why such a unique name? And what does it mean? And so, real quick, we can certainly say in the research that we've been doing out of our records that the churches that founded the Christian Baptist were Baptist. Enterprise Baptist, such as the Mabert Road Church, was part of the Enterprise Association of Old Regular Baptists. And so that's where the Baptist name comes from. It's part of our heritage. And though we don't believe in things such as eternal security or predestination of the saints with strict Calvinism, we kept the Baptist name, and that's part of the heritage for that. And they elected at first to be known as the Christian Baptists, and that was a sign that they were from that background of Baptist, but had began to preach the message of holiness, that there was a definite second work of grace. And so that's where the title Christian Baptist came from. Now, somewhere between 1930, when it was a beginning conversation and the first meetings began to take place, and by 1934, the next record that I've been able to find is that the Church of God had been added, and the lore around that is that there was already a Christian Baptist Association, and that they had took our Christian Baptists to task on the name, and since the two were different in their distinctions, the Christian Baptist Association decided to add Church of God onto it. And that would also signify that we had a holiness background, that we believed in a definite second work of grace, and that was really where that second part came from. And so we have a Baptist background, but yet we are part of a holiness movement.
The regular Baptists kind of surprised me when I re-looked at the picture. I understood they were Enterprise Baptists, which may be the same thing, just a different name. And A.C. Hay and those early preachers that were Enterprise Baptists began preaching second work of grace and sanctification. And they began to lock the doors on. And that's the reason they began Christian Baptist.
August the 4th, 1930, was the date the early Christian Baptists celebrated the founding of the association, according to a 1955 Evangelist newsletter. While we don't have any other resources to confirm that date, we do know on January 3rd, 1931, the following ministers met at the Northmoreland Church in Portsmouth, Ohio: Van B. Williams, William Williams, S.P. Creech, C.A. Wright, A.L. Baldridge, Holly Conley, J.F. Sparks, Floyd C., H.H. Perkins, Robert Meenick, and F.R. Kitchen. Reverend Van B. Williams was chosen as moderator pro tem and proceeded to call the meeting to order. A presbytery was selected with Van B. Williams moderator, J.F. Sparks clerk, and Holly Conley assistant clerk. Reverend John Kemper and Reverend James Upton of the Scioto Yearly Conference of Free Will Baptists, and W.A. Hay of the Enterprise Association of Regular Baptists assisted in the work of the organization. The Articles of Faith, Constitution, and Rules of Decorum which had been prepared were read before the body and unanimously accepted. The moderator appointed J.F. Sparks and Holly Conley as a committee on credentials. Also, S.B. Creech, William Williams, and C.A. Wright as a committee on arrangements. Firebrick Chapel of Firebrick, Kentucky, Westwood Mission of Ashland, Kentucky, Maybert Road of Portsmouth, Ohio, and Northmoreland Church of Portsmouth, Ohio, were accepted into the organization. The association now being permanently organized, the following officers were elected: Van B. Williams, moderator; William Williams, assistant moderator; Hobart Day, clerk; and J.F. Sparks, assistant clerk. The name of the association was then discussed, and it was decided it would be known as the Ohio Valley Association of Christian Baptists.
I go back to remembering A.L. Baldridge. I remember more stories of Dad telling, but I do remember him well. I remember his sternness. I remember his firmness, but I also remember much about him that was good. When Dad had the period of illness where he was healed, Brother Baldridge would come to our house and visit. Very diligent to come and visit Dad. Some of the other Brother Shepherd came. Some of the other ministers would come and visit Dad. And one of the things that Dad would tell about that always impressed me on Brother Baldridge was that before Dad was healed, Brother Baldridge came and visited him. He was still totally paralyzed on his left side. And he got him up and to where he could measure him. He said, I want to measure you for a set of trousers, called a trousers. He said, measure for a set of trousers. He said, well, buy you a pair that's a little bit larger than what I'm measuring now because you're going to need them and you're going to get heavier. And so you're going to need some new trousers when you get out of this bed. That was prior to his being healed. So I remember the faith of Brother Baldridge and those things. Ministers of that era that really influenced me, that really made me who I am, I guess, of that era as a child. The preachers was Frank Helton, Ed Heberlin, Helen Walker, those ministers like that. Back at that time also, even like Doris Coburn was a part of this conference, and some of those ministers that I knew real well that would come to our house. They would come and they would preach in the church. And we had an afternoon Sunday school where Dad pastored. So they would come for a 2 o'clock Sunday school service and go to our house and stay till the 7 o'clock service that night or whatever. So had many memories of being with those people and what godly people they were and how they influenced me.
There are many more who were involved in organizing and growing the Christian Baptist. Many names and other records are lost to time. And while it is usually the names of ministers who are noted, other lay members such as James Hammond, father of Bill Hammond, who played such a vital role in the Christian Baptist early history. Part of our work in this research has been to learn more about those who were essential to the founding of our association. From 1931 to 1938, the General Councils met at different churches like Maybert Road, Northmoreland, Westwood, Firebrick, Reedsville, and Jeanette's Creek. They then settled at a campground for a number of years in Franklin Furnace, Ohio. In September of 1934, the General Council accepted a written charter officially making the group of the Ohio Valley Association Christian Baptist Church of God. The Articles of Faith were also settled in their readings that really made them distinct from the old regular Baptist churches. In those days, the council meetings went from Friday morning to Sunday evening, businesses on Friday and Saturday mornings, and services during the evenings. Sunday was 2 services. Dinner was served on the grounds to all the delegates sent from the churches. The ministers to preach the introductory session of the next year's meeting would be picked by a preaching committee. The preaching committee would be appointed at the beginning of each meeting, and they would also pick the preachers for the remaining services during the current council.
One major event that I seen in the General Council minutes that really solidifies the fact that the Christian Baptist was pursuing to be a holiness organization is its an apparent partnership that it had with the Kentucky Christian Churches, a holiness conference that I was a part of before coming to fully into the Christian Baptist. And in 1937, there was an attempted merger. Now, it has been mentioned that there were 2 attempted mergers, and each time one association had tried to go with the other one. But so far, I've only been able to find and confirm one of these, and that was in September 1937, when 2 delegates were sent from the KCC, the Kentucky Christian Conference, out of Moorhead, Kentucky, and asked if they could have delegates from the Christian Baptists sent to their conference, which would be in a couple of weeks after that, but that they also sent a letter that they could look into the possibility of the KCC merging with the Christian Baptist. And so that did not happen. Of course, we kind of see that today. But until the late 70s, there was a constant mention of KCC representatives coming to the Christian Baptist General Councils, being seated as delegates. They had a vote apparently, and that the Christian Baptist would send 2 delegates to the Kentucky Christian Holiness Council, and could be seated as delegates. So as far as what actually happened when they got there, not exactly sure. I haven't been able to make it over there for those records, but that partnership with another holiness conference within the geographical area just really helped show the pursuit of holiness that the Christian Baptist was having. It was not something that they developed. It was something that the Christian Baptist was born out of and had a very strong understanding of the holiness movement that it was taking part in.
The Christian Baptist would grow very quickly, with over 40 churches by the 1970s. The association would have several churches in Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, and one in Indiana, one in Michigan, and one planted by Opal Plummer in Baltimore, Maryland. The first mention of camp meeting that we have available is in 1937. Prior to then, the association may have rented other tabernacles, such as the Queen's Tabernacle pictured, which was off of Lawson Street in Willersburg, Ohio, for its camp meeting services. But we really don't know until we are able to secure more items. However, as the association grew, it became essential for the group to find a central location for its councils. And so in 1937, the Christian Baptists bought the Cliffside Tabernacle, or what was known as 39th Street. Then in 1939, the Christian Baptists moved to Franklin Furnace to have its camp meeting services. And there it would remain until 1944, when it bought the campgrounds in Willersburg that we know today.
I was really a kid at the time. I remember a building of some kind that was screened in. sides were all open, but it was screened in. That, to me, was the dining hall, but I'm not positive. Okay. It was located in the area where the volunteer fire department is now, between there and the railroad. And I remember there was no water, so Reverend Holly Conley, my first pastor that I was saved under, took his car and a trailer and like 6 barrels to get water and haul water in for the use of water. That's the vague remembrance that I have of it. From that to the campground, and I don't remember exactly the year that it started here. I remember them building the tabernacle. I remember that they had the front wall up and it fell, and they had to redo the front wall. That's a street wall. And the women's dorm was that what they called the administration building. The upstairs to that was the women's dormitory. And my mother came. We had a 1934 Chevrolet. And my mother came, and my brother Jim and I, we had to stay with my mother in her room up in the dormitory, women's dorm. And the funny thing about that I remember as a kid, about 10 years ago, and we'd run and had an old house set right back here behind us, and we'd run up and down the stairs, and we'd run out and play ball and just do different things like that. And that was in when I was a young boy. And then when we got married, why, she and I told you we had a restaurant right over here, and we go around on Saturday or every evening at a camp meeting. Different people sing, different people preach and testify, and it started at 6 o'clock, right on the button. And then at 7 o'clock, while we went over, and our leader over there, Brother Baldridge, he really, he kept us straight.
In 1944, the association bought the Crystal Springs campground and held camp meeting in a tent until the tabernacle was constructed. Construction of the tabernacle we worship in today began in August of 1946. The east wall with the double doors next to the road was erected first. However, they would have to set it up again after they fell down. Houses and a 2-story administration building would appear after 1948, as we find that a camp bedding committee was appointed to find and make mattresses for the dorms. What is known as the Little Tabernacle today had its first block laid in December of 1955 as a young people's tabernacle with Sunday school rooms that could double as dormitories during camp meeting. The Little Tabernacle would be completed in 1956. Still, much attention was given to the developing camp as a call for seats in the big tabernacle and more beds for newer dormitories, Baldridge and Conley Hall, had been erected. More than buildings is the people. People such as Reverend Earl G. Smith, who was the pastor of the Beechford Chapel for over 63 years and the West Virginia superintendent. He is the founder of the Ring Meeting, a service that began at 6 o'clock that provided a time of music and testimonies and preaching for many of the young ministers. Many changes have come and gone on the campgrounds. The old administration building burned down, and a new building was built to replace it in 1968. The restaurant had its own building. There was a year-long gift and flower shop. A small shelter house has come and a new one built. The new shelter house that has been built provides much needed shade for campers who want to fellowship during the day and make lasting memories. Camp meeting evangelist Brian Jessup in the 1970s started a fundraiser for air conditioning and heating in the big tabernacle to make it much better suited for year-long use. However, with all of this, the camp meeting has always been a place of holiness preaching with great emphasis on worshiping the Lord in spirit and in truth.
My favorite thing about camp meeting is fellowship, getting to see people I haven't seen throughout the year, and all the churches come together and we get to hang out outside or wherever it may be, and getting to talk to so many folks and just enjoying just the time to break away from the world and just have a good time with Christ and come together. So I love that.
Great. Almost as old as the conference itself is the Christian Baptist Evangelist, better known as the Messenger today. The Evangelist has served as a newsletter for the Christian Baptists for almost its entirety. One of the longest running editors of the Christian Baptist Messenger was Jesse M. Daly, who took it over and seemed to have revived it according to the records, producing the Christian Baptist Publisher.
One of the interesting things about the Evangelist, before it was known as the Messenger, was prior to the 50s and 60s, one thing that we kind of find out through reading it and the minutes together of the annual general councils is that it was more than just sharing about past events that had taken place during the months in the local churches, but it really seemed to have a very important part of communicating and describing future events that were not really in concrete yet. And what I mean by that is that they would put a union meeting. This is when they would have neighboring Christian Baptist churches invited and Christian Baptist ministers to come and preach their revivals. And these union meetings, they would schedule through the Evangelist. And what I noticed is I was reading through some of the minutes, there was a resolution that the ministers were to keep the slate that was given to them through the Evangelist. And as you look at some of the old minutes in these union meetings, they would have a section just or a column, and it would just be union meeting after union meeting. And they would say Bonza Run Church or Columbus First Church or Antioch Church or different churches of that through there. It would give the dates, and it would put something such as we request S.P. Creech to preach this meeting, and if then it would have an alternate of F.E. Veach or something of that nature. And so basically, if you were a minister, you looked at each upcoming messenger or evangelist, and you would see where somebody was requesting you to preach. And if you had the dates open, you go hold the union meeting, and if you didn't, then the alternate that was called out in the messenger would hold the meeting.
Another of the oldest arms of the Christian Baptists is the Christian Baptist Youth, who regularly have met on the campgrounds of the Christian Baptists when it was at Willersburg, Ohio. Also have their own campgrounds known as Peace Valley in Minford, Ohio now. The youth camp was given the property in the 90s, and by the 2000s began to have 2 weeks of camp during the month of June at Peace Valley. The home missions of the Christian Baptists had a forerunner called the Church Extension Fund, which we still have today, but it is for different purposes. The church home missions was for the planting of new churches. Faith Bible Institute began in 1964 under the leadership of Jackie Fletcher. It began in the old Rubyville School and then moved to the old administration building on the campgrounds before burning down. The new building was erected in 1968 and has provided an administrative hall for the Christian Baptists.
Today, Faith Bible Institute has oversight of the ministers who are being ordained, going through that pathway, and we provide training for ministers, a type of orientation before they're licensed, and then we work with them through other required courses. We try to do correspondence. We would love to be able to get Faith Bible Institute back to some type of accreditation. That was lost in 1985. It was a full two-year degree conferring school by the state of Ohio. It didn't have any regional accreditation at that time, but still it's very big to have state accreditation, being recognized as a state school. And in 1985 is when they lost that accreditation. That was before my time. That was the year that I was born. So it would be great to be able to get back into that, and that's been a goal of ours, to keep pushing forward for that accreditation. But until then, we're strengthening our courses. We're becoming more streamlined with what we offer. We're becoming more transparent in how we present our courses, how they're designed.
World for Christ Missions is the largest arm and ministry of the Christian Baptists, having over 200 churches in foreign lands. Willing Hearts is a helper of World for Christ Missions and has done much work together in their partnership to bring the gospel to many different groups of people. Between the 1970s and 2000s, the Christian Baptist organization went through a change of generations. Many of the founders were beginning to pass away, and we're beginning to pass the baton to new faces. Other changes began to take place also in the 1970s that shaped the Christian Baptist as we know it today, not only through the new leaders, but, for example, the Christian Baptists had always had a strong presence of licensed lady ministers. Even in 1934, just a few years after its opening, half of the licensed ministers were women. But in the 1970s, a motion was made and carried forth that women could be fully ordained in the Christian Baptists. This change and many others were just part of this period of time.
Christian Baptist has been very good to me, and I can go back, didn't really get involved in it until maybe 1965 something, we got married. When did we get married? 60?
No. Just married
69. And then we started got converted, and we got involved in the church. And that's where I'm at today. Yeah. Been good to me.
I was part of it, loved it. My uncles were all part of it. I mean, it's been a Rogers tradition. Our family has always been Christian Baptist for the most part. All of them up to here. And Dad had 3-4 brothers that preached, and they were all Christian Baptist ministers. A couple sister-in-law's a priest, and like Aunt Libby, she was a Christian Baptist minister, and the others got credentials in Christian Baptist. So it's always been our heritage. Yeah, Christian Baptist is my heritage. I love Christian Baptist, but Carl Biggs was the one who really influenced me to come and become a part of the Christian Baptist Conference. And Dad just kind of let me go and let me decide on my own, but Carl would keep talking to me. You need to come in, and I'll never forget coming down to the basement here, in the basement administration building, the ministers' conference where we had that then. Ministers' conference was downstairs in the basement in the classroom. That's where we met. Came in, Brother Marion White was the general superintendent. I knew Brother White. I heard him preach, heard his family sing years ago, So I knew who he was, but didn't know him really well. But I came in, and I remember sitting there the day that I was going to go up for licensing and for questioning, scared to death. I'm going to face these fellas. Don't know them well. I have to talk to them. Carl said, I'll go in with you. And he did. But I sat in there, and during that minister's conference, the Lord came and overwhelmed my heart. And I knew I had confirmation. Because you're kind of not sure, do I do or not? What do I do? And man, that morning, I got my confirmation. This is where you belong. And so I came in then. I've been here ever since. That was in the, I think 86, somewhere thereabouts. Ordained in, I believe 88 was my ordination. And matter of fact, in preaching a prayer meeting last night, I brought up Brother White and fed into the message and the charge he gave us as young ministers. And that I'll never forget the charge. We stood there in front of the altar and he said, preach the word. And he advised us as young ministers that I don't care how you preach. He said, I don't care if you preach loud or quietly. I don't care if you preach and move and you run and you jump. I don't care if you stand still. I don't care how your delivery is, what method of delivery you deliver the message. I'm not concerned about that. If there's one thing I am concerned about, and I want to make sure, is that you preach the word. I care about what you preach. And I think that's still true today in Christian Baptists. I think we still care about what you preach. I'm not sure that some others care too much. It's just numbers game or whatever. But I think we still care. We still care about people's souls. Care about their souls. So I love it. I love Christian Baptist. I love our conference. I love our people. I wish we had more churches. As the older generation passed off, we've lost a lot of churches, and that breaks my heart. To see some of these young men are coming in and really get a burden and go out and want to take these churches. It's hard work. It's hard work, but we need them. We need our message out there. We've got a good message of holiness, and I like the message of holiness. I love it because I believe it's God's word. I believe it's the truth. I remember when we patted the seats, the pews. Brother Shepherd, Brother Veach. A good story, Brother Shepherd, Brother Veach. I came on general board very young, very green, and because of the general secretary stepping down in his midterm, I went into it as assistant secretary, very green, into the general secretary's job. And I've held that now, I think, 27 years. 27 years, I think. So I've been in a lot of board meetings. I've missed very few. Brother Veach and Brother Shepherd was on there. And, they had memories like an elephant, they would say. and they would come across in the board meeting like they were just kind of, oh gosh, they're at each other, and they're talking back and forth what to do and not to do, and their remembrance of things or whatever. But the thing that always impressed me was, now Ed, you know better, now Shep, you know this, whatever, and they'd go back and forth. And then as soon as the meeting was over, you see them over there, hugging each other's neck, arms around their shoulders, walking out together, laughing and talking. I mean, it was their demeanor. It was their demeanor. They were not mad. They were not upset. They did not dislike each other. It was nothing going on. It was just how they came across, and as a young kid sitting there, what's these old guys are doing? But it was just how they operated, and they just loved each other. I mean, they were the best friends. They would have probably literally, if figuratively, they would have killed for each other. They loved each other that much, but yet they would banter back and forth. You know, it was funny. It was kind of funny, but it was never anything, you know, really out of order whatsoever. But it was just kind of fun as a young boy sitting there, you know, young man sitting there watching these two older fellas, you know. But I remember when Brother Shepherd got the desire to get the seats padded, went around the churches and raised money, you know, and we got the pews padded in the tabernacle, which is somewhat of a plus. They're still not real comfortable, but they do. We survived, but he got that done. Remember when we tore the old shelter house down, built a new shelter house. You know, that's a big improvement, you know, and lots and lots of improvements on the buildings, roofs, and going into the dorms and working. I got the better air conditioning in the cafeteria, dining hall. That was a good plus. And, you know, the cover over the walkway built. I remember Bill Claxton had the desire to build that cover over the sidewalk going from the administration building here to the dining hall, and Bill got the money together, and people together, and built that cover over. And it's a good plus on a rainy day. And you know, poured some concrete around going into the tabernacle where people used to fall going out the upper doors, the front doors, I guess you would call it. Yeah, it always rains during camp meeting. It always get muddy and slick. So we got some concrete there, and a little handrail, and just a lot of odds and ends, you know, like that. It's just good to see the improvements here through the whole transition of getting Peace Valley given to us, the property, and then I could purchase a little more property to go with it, and put the building up, building the road, and all those things. And you know, you had some transition there, you know, it's like we always felt like Brother White was the gentle shepherd. That's when I came in, and I don't know all that went on prior to that or what was going on, but somebody had made the comment like he was the one that just kind of, maybe there was some little dissension, I don't know, among people. But Brother Shepherd was one of the ones that just loved them all back together. He just was a kind, gentle, but firm. I saw him be very firm a few times when problems would arise. I saw him take a stand for what he believed and what was right, but yet he was that gentle, loving individual type leader. And so we saw the different leadership. Then we saw, you know, Mark Baer come, saw Jim Bender come, and then Brother Paul is here, and different leadership styles. But I think everyone had a heart for the conference, and just loved it with all their heart, and we're loved by the people. We're very loved by the people.
The other influences, I guess, in my life, you know, the music part of it, your dad, you know, of course, my family, a lot of them had sang out of here in the camp meetings, and so I got to experience that. And then I thought, wow, maybe one day I'll get to sing, you know, and then that ended up happening, and I thought I had arrived, you know, that I've made it. I made the Christian Baptist evening service. You know, that was everybody's goal, make the evening service. So I did. Brown Heritage Quartet, I think is who I sang with. And then me and my sister, I got to sing with Mike and Teresa song. And then, but then as God called me to preach, and I got to become more involved in the ordination process and go through all the classes. You know, I never did take Dad's classes because I didn't have to. I heard him all the time. So, but then I started having to take Dad's classes, and Sister Irwin, I think, might have even been teaching back then, and some other ones, maybe Brother Benner. I think we sat through a manual class together. And so, you know, then I really started getting, you know, thirsting after God and finding out what more that He wanted from me. And so, I'm so privileged to have my dad's name on my license and my ordination, and that's a treasure. I know it's a piece of paper, but it still means a lot to me. And then the day came when I got the invitation to preach, and Jeremy, I'm telling you, that was, you've been there. Talking about it. It's just, when you grow up in this denomination, and you know, then
God allows you to preach, and you're thinking maybe someday. It's not that you are jealous or envious, but man, that would be neat. And then it's scary at the same time, right? Because you're thinking, how in the world? But I remember my very first sermon that I preached here at the camp in the evening service, and I made the comment to Paul. I got up there and I was nervous wreck, and I said, "Paul, you want this?" And I just kind of, and he said, "No, you got it." And I don't know what happened, but God just turned the faucets on, and the Spirit of God came and He helped us. And so, man, just I could go on and on. We used to have the devoted morning services, the devoted afternoon services in the little tabernacle. I cut my teeth on the ring services at 6 o'clock. Brother Gallagher would have us come over and preach those ring services with 2 or 3 people, and those memories.
Christian Baptist Association, as far as I'm concerned, is as fine association as there is in this Ohio Valley. And see we don't have big churches, but I believe all of our churches are doing their best they can and being blessed by God. And I know at Sand Hill, God blessed us up there, and now age caught up with me there.
Some of the churches who had good doctrines have, even though they still have those doctrines, they don't practice their doctrine per se. They've left the practice of that doctrine. For the most part, we as Christian Baptists, I think we still practice what we say we believe. That's the thing that holds true to me. I love Christian Baptists. I mean, I realize we're not the only people going to heaven. I tell folks sometimes if we're the only ones going to heaven, we'd be a very small crowd up there. So I understand that. But I think doctrine and staying true to our doctrinal precepts, some folks don't like them. Some think that we're too small. They're looking for the bigger avenues and venues and all that. But I'm not. I like what we are. I like the kind of people we are. I like the fellowship. I like the love. I like just the camaraderie of being a part of this conference. I love camp meeting. I love any of the community, the service we get to come together. Made so many friends. I would say the sincerity among the people. There seems to be a commonality since I was young to present day, it'll be 43 years that I've been here, that what I've seen is the people here are real. I had a preacher come up to me the other night that we just brought him into the denomination, transferred, and he said, "It's wonderful to come into a place. It doesn't matter what degrees are behind your name. Don't matter what you have in your pocketbook. You come into part of this family and you're treated as you should be treated." And the sincerity that I've seen over the years, the people are real. It's genuine. The shouting, the worship at Christian Baptist, at our Christian Baptist churches, and particularly the camp meeting, is unlike any other I've ever been. And I've been to some wonderful places and seen some unique ways people shout. But the Christian Baptist camp meeting by far surpasses the style of worship, the uniqueness and sincerity. And of course, I'm sure it's been reflected already, but the first one that pops in my mind is Sister Waller Salmons, and how she would shout like a siren on a fire truck. And we knew, in her little spot on the front row, right on the aisle seat. If that didn't happen during a service, you might as well turn your credentials in because. But no, I mean that no, jokingly. But she had a way of being a key to the service so many times, and then over the course, I don't know how much you want me to share about those type of memories, but as a child, I would be almost I would say in fear, but sometimes things caught me off guard, and I've learned over the years to appreciate that because it was people being sensitive to the Spirit. But as a young child, it kind of scared me, startled me, I guess. You got people like Wade Gallagher that would run around the sanctuary, and Russell Lee Scott which, he would visit our camp meetings. Brother Jessup, the way he preached, and then when you have, my family, my heritage, they would be out here. My Uncle Freddie Brown, my Papa James Ray, and how they would shout. And it just seems to be that was the common theme. One thing you always could count on the Christian Baptist Camp Meeting and the Christian Baptist Association is that people were going to worship God in sincerity, and it doesn't matter who was there. If God hit them, they was going to show it. And we do have a great heritage.
I don't know what it's going to take. I'm not the moderator, but I wouldn't be anyway. But I don't know what's going to take to make where we can make it plunge and push out there and do something that excites the people and get them involved and get them to come and get them to give some money.
We're at a turning point in our conference, and I was like, we can either continue as we're doing and basically start to dwindle away, or we can take what we're learning here and start this as a springboard to bigger and better things. Whereas some churches are in transition periods, we have a lot of things going on, and then I come in and I look over the congregation, and what used to, and I'm not beating this man, but what used to be majority of older folks, I look out in the crowd this year, and my heart is so blessed to see 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds. I'm still young, but what I'm saying is people younger than me coming on, and it reminded me of myself, the young people. I don't know how many young people we have this year, well over 60 maybe. They have a desire to serve the Lord, and they have a desire to be a part of us. And I was getting tired of training people to go other places. I wanted to keep these people here. And what we're doing is we're retaining now. What we have done in previous years, people have come in and then they've left. And for whatever reason, that's fine. But what I'm saying is that'll never build anything. So what we're doing is we're retaining these people. My prayer is that us, my generation, and those above me can embrace these young ones that are coming on. And they may not do everything right. They won't do everything right. But we didn't do everything right either when we were their age. And yet you had Marion Whites, Jerry Shepherds, F.E. Veaches, Mark Bears, Delma Rogers, Bill Hammonds. You had those type of people that said, you know what, it's all right. It's all right. Let's teach them. Let's bring them up. And so I am so encouraged and excited to see what's going to be happening with our. We've always had great services, but you can tell from one year to the next how the churches are doing because you can just sense it. And this year, I sense a sense of excitement. I sense an urgency, a greater love for the Lord, and it's obvious because we got some good people coming on that I think is going to take us to the next level. And I'm very excited. So my prayer is to just take what we've learned. We got a great heritage, but we can't replace those people. We can't even get in their shoes. I can't do it, but I can build on their foundation that they've set, and I can stick to those standards. I can still have the same standards, still worship the same God. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So let's finish well. I think we can do it.
The present day shows promise and challenge. By looking at our heritage, we can also see the direction we are heading. There are many new faces in this association of churches. Whatever new initiatives we start, whatever new challenges we face, let us seek to be true to our heritage, holiness unto the Lord.